If you break a bone, your body knows exactly how to knit it back together. If you cut your skin, your biology seals the wound right up. Your body is an absolute miracle of physical regeneration. But there is one terrifying exception to this rule. When the microscopic tissue inside your brain begins to break down, there is a very strict point of no return. Cross that invisible line, and the condition is locked in. The damage becomes permanent. The person you have always been, the memories you hold, and the personality you possess are slowly but irreversibly erased. And the most dangerous part of this entire process? That invisible line is crossed up to 20 years before you ever forget a single name or misplace a single set of keys. Hello, my name is Dr. Rubio Santner. For most of us, the word dementia feels like a random lightning strike. We view it as a tragic event that just happens one day, simply because we accumulated too many birthdays. But your actual biology tells a completely different story. It is not a sudden strike. It is a slow, methodical, and progressive dimming of the lights. And the most crucial thing you need to grasp today is that if you wait until those lights are flickering violently to finally care about your health, the underlying machinery of your mind is already too damaged to repair. On this channel, Metabolic Health Simplified, we refuse to accept getting older as a guaranteed decline into weakness and confusion. We look at the raw science of human aging. Today, we are going to walk step by step through the 7 distinct biological stages of cognitive decline. You are going to learn exactly how to spot the difference between normal human forgetfulness and a dangerous neurological glitch. And most importantly, you are going to discover the single biological switch you must flip right now to defend your memory before the window of reversal closes for good. To understand what is actually happening during those 7 stages, you have to stop thinking of your brain as a computer. You need to start thinking of it as a high-performance engine. Your brain makes up only about 2% of your total body weight. Yet it demands a staggering 20% of your body's entire energy supply every single minute of the day. It is incredibly, ruthlessly hungry. When your metabolic health is strong, your brain has a steady, clean pipeline of fuel. The engine hums. But when that fuel pipeline gets interrupted due to chronic inflammation, poor blood flow, or a cellular inability to process energy, those brain cells begin to starve. Imagine a massive, sprawling, brilliantly lit city grid. When that city suddenly does not have enough electricity to power every single building at once, it does not just shut down completely and plunge into darkness. It initiates a rolling blackout. The grid managers turn off the lights in the outer suburbs first. They sacrifice the fringes to save enough power for the downtown core and the critical hospitals. Your brain executes the exact same survival strategy. When your brain is metabolically starving, it initiates a rolling blackout. It starts shutting down the neurological suburbs, your short-term memory, or ability to calculate numbers quickly, your rapid word recall, just to keep the absolute core functions of your breathing and heart rate alive. Which brings us to the absolute beginning of the timeline. Stage 1 is the silent window. It is characterized by absolutely zero cognitive decline. If you sit down in a neurologist's office and take a memory test today, you will score perfectly. Your family notices nothing strange. You notice nothing missing. But under a microscope, the biological landscape inside your skull is already shifting. The individual cells are beginning to lose their metabolic efficiency. The microscopic energy pipelines are starting to gather rust. The only reason you do not feel this rust is because of a biological safety net called cognitive reserve. Your brain has built-in redundancy. It has millions of extra pathways and backup generators. When one microscopic connection dies from lack of fuel, the brain simply builds a detour and routes the electrical signal around the dead zone. You are actively losing brain cells, but your mind is brilliantly covering its tracks. This is the ultimate danger of stage 1. Because the damage is completely invisible to you and everyone you love, There is absolutely zero urgency to change your lifestyle habits. You keep eating the same way, sleeping the same way, and living the same way, entirely unaware that the grid is weakening. Then, years later, you drift quietly into stage 2. This is known clinically as very mild cognitive decline. You are still entirely independent. You are driving to work. You are managing your household. And you are living a seemingly normal life. But the backup generators are starting to struggle under the load. You might walk into the kitchen and completely forget why you went in there. You might be having a vibrant conversation with a friend, and suddenly, a completely common everyday word, like microwave or envelope, is just wiped from your vocabulary. You know the word. You can feel the shape of it on the tip of your tongue. But the neurological pathway to retrieve it is temporarily dead. This is the stage where people start making very rational excuses. You tell yourself you're just exhausted from work. You tell yourself you're stressed about money. Or you just laugh it off as part of getting older. And to be fair, occasional forgetfulness is a completely normal human experience. We all have days where our brains are simply too tired to function perfectly. But you need to know the clear, undeniable boundary between normal aging and a progressive disease. Normal aging is forgetting where you put your reading glasses because you are actively watching television when you set them down on the coffee table. That is a failure of attention, not a failure of memory. If you stop, take a breath, retrace your steps, and think about what you were doing 10 minutes ago, you will eventually find them. Abnormal decline, the blaring red flag of dementia, is when you cannot retrace your steps at all. The memory of setting the glasses down was never actually recorded on the hard drive of your brain. Or, even more concerning, you find the glasses, but for a terrifying split second, you hold them in your hands and feel deeply confused about what they are used for. Normal aging is a temporary glitch in retrieving a file. Dementia is the physical, permanent deletion of the file itself. If the body's metabolic environment does not change, the rolling blackouts push deeper into the city. You enter stage 3. This is the tipping point. This is mild cognitive impairment, and this is where the curtain drops. The brain simply cannot hide the physical damage anymore, and the people closest to you start to notice the slips. In stage 3, your performance at work or in your complex daily hobbies begins to noticeably fracture. If you sit down to read a chapter in a book, by the time your eyes scan the final paragraph, you have absolutely no idea what the first page was about. You meet someone new at a gathering. They look you in the eye, shake your hand, and tell you their name. 10 seconds later, that name is permanently gone from your mind. What is absolutely fascinating and deeply tragic about stage 3 is that the person experiencing it is usually acutely, painfully aware that their mind is failing them. Your frontal lobe, the part of the brain responsible for self-awareness and logical assessment, is still largely intact. You know you are dropping the ball. You know you are forgetting crucial details. And because you know, the internal anxiety becomes absolutely overwhelming. This triggers the phase of the great cover-up. People in stage 3 start building an elaborate, invisible scaffolding around their entire lives. They start carrying around little notebooks, leaving themselves sticky note clues on the bathroom mirror, and setting multiple alarms on their phone just to get through a standard Tuesday without making a massive mistake. They also begin to withdraw from busy social gatherings. They don't stay home because they are suddenly antisocial or depressed. They stay home because they are terrified of being publicly exposed. Following a fast-paced, overlapping conversation between 4 different people at a loud dinner party requires an immense, continuous amount of rapid-fire processing power. When your brain lacks the metabolic energy to keep up with the speed of the room, being at that dinner party feels like standing in the middle of a busy freeway blindfolded. The safest option is simply to retreat. This is the critical, final window of opportunity. At stage 3, there is still enough viable, healthy brain tissue left to mount a real defense. Your brain still has the energy to adapt, to respond aggressively to lifestyle interventions, and to physically rebuild connections. You still have the self-awareness and the motivation to take action. But the window is closing fast, because next comes stage 4, moderate cognitive decline, early dementia. At this point, the rolling blackouts have bypassed the outer suburbs and reached the commercial districts of the city. True independence begins to crack. The defining characteristic of stage 4 is the total inability to handle multi-step, complex planning. Imagine trying to cook a large holiday dinner for your family. You have to coordinate the turkey in the oven at a specific temperature, the vegetables steaming on the stove, the potatoes boiling, and the exact timing of the guests arriving. That entire operation requires a mental function called working memory. Working memory is your brain's ability to hold multiple, shifting pieces of information in your mind at the exact same time and manipulate them. In stage 4, working memory physically collapses. The person might put the raw turkey in the oven and completely forget to turn the heat on. Or they might look at the ingredients on the counter, become entirely overwhelmed by the steps, and just abandon the kitchen in tears. Numbers also become a completely alien language. Calculating a 20% tip at a restaurant or trying to balance a standard checkbook becomes a genuinely impossible task. It isn't that they are distracted. The neurological hardware required to perform the mathematical calculation has physically deteriorated and died. This is also the stage where denial often solidifies into anger. The brain begins to lose its capacity for deep self-awareness, so the person might aggressively, furiously insist that their memory is perfectly fine. They often lash out at the very family members who are simply trying to help them manage their finances or remind them of their daily schedule. Then, the disease crosses a devastating threshold into stage 5, moderately severe decline. If you have a loved one who has walked this path, you know this is the stage where the heartbreak truly accelerates. Survival with our daily hands-on assistance is no longer possible. The blackouts have reached the downtown core. In stage 5, the timeline of a person's life begins to shatter and fold in on itself. They might know exactly who they are, and they usually still recognize their spouse and their grown children. But they completely lose their anchor to the present moment. They might wake up and have no idea if it is morning or evening, Tuesday or Friday, the middle of summer, or the dead of winter. This complete loss of environmental context leads to severe, dangerous judgment errors. They might walk into their bedroom on a blazing hot July afternoon and put on a heavy winter coat, a thick scarf, and wool gloves, completely unable to process the temperature outside or match their clothing to reality. They may forget their own current home address or confidently give you a phone number they haven't had in 35 years. Their brain is actively time traveling, pulling up dusty, decades-old files because the new files have been permanently corrupted. As the physical damage marches relentlessly forward, we enter stage 6, severe cognitive decline. This is where the person you have known and loved your entire life begins to fade away, replaced by someone you barely recognize. The physical tissue of the brain has shrunk significantly. The valleys and grooves on the surface of the brain have widened into massive canyons. In stage 6, they may look directly at their spouse of 50 years and believe with utter conviction that they are a stranger, or mistake them for a parent who passed away decades ago. The names of their own children vanish completely. But the most jarring and difficult shift in stage 6 is the total loss of emotional regulation and the profound changes in personality. The front of your brain acts as a sophisticated filter and an emotional brake pedal. It stops you from acting on every sudden impulse and helps you process fear logically. When that brake pedal is physically destroyed by disease, the entire emotional system goes haywire. People in stage 6 often experience intense paranoia, hallucinations, and delusions. They might genuinely believe that their family is stealing their money, or that dangerous strangers are living in the guest room. They might pace the hallways compulsively for hours, or try to wander out the front door in the middle of the night, driven by a deep, terrifying, unexplainable urge to go home, even when they are already sitting in their own living room. They require round-the-clock, intense supervision, not just for their physical needs, but because the world has become an intensely terrifying, unpredictable, and incomprehensible place for them. The simplest tasks of human dignity, using the bathroom, taking a shower, holding a spoon to eat a bowl of soup, now require patient, hand-over-hand guidance. Finally, the disease reaches stage 7, very severe cognitive decline. This is the complete system shutdown. The brain has lost so much mass, so much physical volume, and so much connective tissue that it can no longer send basic electrical signals to the body to perform biological functions. All communication completely stops. The person may occasionally hum, groan, or make a repetitive sound, but there are no words, no structured sentences, and absolutely no recognition of the environment around them. They can no longer walk or hold their head up. Eventually, the brain loses the ability to tell the throat muscles how to execute a swallow, making eating and drinking impossible without choking. In the very final quiet moments of stage 7, the core brainstem itself falters, and the brain simply forgets to tell the lungs to pull in oxygen and the heart to beat. It is a brutally heavy reality to face. It is devastating to watch unfold in someone you love. And it is exactly why we cannot afford to wait until we are stumbling through stage 4 or stage 5 to suddenly start caring about the health of our neurology. Because here is the profound, empowering truth that the medical community is finally, urgently embracing. For the vast majority of people, dementia is not just bad luck. It is not just a genetic curse you are doomed to inherit. It is fundamentally, at its core, a disease of metabolism and physical degeneration. Now, before I show you exactly how to protect your brain against this metabolic decline, I need to anchor this with a clear boundary. I am a doctor, but I am not your personal physician. The biological science and protocols we discuss here are for your deep education and empowerment, not a substitute for professional medical care. Always consult your specific healthcare provider before you make significant changes to your diet, your exercise routine, or your medical management. When we talk about brain degeneration, you have to understand how your brain cells actually survive on a daily basis. Your brain relies on a vast, microscopic network of blood vessels to deliver oxygen and glucose. But as we age, and particularly as we live a modern, highly sedentary lifestyle, eating heavily processed, factory-made foods, our bodies undergo a massive, silent crisis known as insulin resistance. You have likely heard the term insulin resistance in the context of type 2 diabetes, stubborn belly fat, or energy crashes. But what happens in the muscles and the liver also happens directly inside the brain. In fact, many leading neurologists and metabolic researchers now openly refer to Alzheimer's disease and specific forms of dementia as type 3 diabetes. The connection is that absolute and undeniable. When you consume excessive amounts of refined carbohydrates, liquid sugars, and processed seed oils, your blood sugar spikes violently. Your body pumps out insulin to clear that toxic sugar out of the bloodstream. Over the years, your cells get utterly sick of the constant aggressive flooding of insulin. So, to protect themselves, they essentially change the locks on their doors. They become resistant to the signal. When the delicate cells inside your brain become insulin resistant, a terrifying mechanism triggers. Even if you just ate a massive meal and there is plenty of fuel floating around in your bloodstream, the brain cells cannot open their doors to let the fuel inside. The cells are literally starving to death while swimming in an ocean of energy. When a brain cell starves, it shrinks. It physically pulls back its connections to other cells to conserve power. It stops sending signals. And if it starves long enough, it dies. Once that cell dies, your body treats it as damage. It triggers a localized immune response, creating chronic neuroinflammation. Your brain essentially catches on fire at a microscopic level, and that chronic, smoldering fire burns down even more connections. This is the exact biological reality driving the rolling blackouts of dementia. You fix the foundation of this problem by forcing the body to become highly sensitive to insulin again, and by sending a massive, undeniable survival signal directly to the brain. Most people mistakenly think preventing dementia means doing a daily crossword puzzle, playing Sudoku, or learning to speak Italian. And cognitive stimulation is absolutely wonderful. It helps build that cognitive reserve we talked about back in stage 1. But doing a puzzle while your brain is metabolically starving is exactly like putting a fresh coat of expensive paint on a house while the foundation is actively sinking into a swamp. You have to fix the foundation first. And the single most powerful way to send a survival signal to your brain is through intense, consistent physical movement. We are not just talking about taking a casual, relaxed 5-minute stroll around the neighborhood. We are talking about challenging your muscle tissue. When you engage in resistance training, when you lift weights, push your physical limits, and demand that your muscles work hard against gravity, your muscles actually act as an endocrine organ. They release specific, powerful chemical messengers, proteins called myokines, directly into your bloodstream. These myokines travel up through your neck and cross the blood-brain barrier. Once inside your brain, they act like a miracle fertilizer for your dying neurons. They trigger the massive release of a specific compound called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. BDNF is the absolute master compound responsible for neuroplasticity. It is the chemical that gives your brain the ability to heal itself, to build brand new neurological roads, and to forge fresh, strong connections between cells. When you sit in a chair all day, staring at a screen, your brain receives a very clear biological signal. That signal says, "We are not doing anything difficult. We do not need all this expensive, energy-hungry brain tissue to survive. Start shutting it down." But when you lift heavy things, when you dramatically elevate your heart rate, when you challenge your physical balance and coordination, your brain receives a completely different, life-saving signal. It hears, "We are in an environment that demands survival. We need to be sharp. We need to be quick. Keep the lights on. Keep the power grid running at maximum capacity." Physical movement physically increases the size and volume of your hippocampus, the exact memory center of the brain that dementia attacks and shrinks first. Movement forces your blood vessels to dilate, aggressively flushing out the metabolic waste that accumulates during the day. It pulls sugar right out of your bloodstream and into your working muscles without even needing insulin, which radically lowers your overall blood sugar and gives your starving brain cells the break they desperately need to heal their broken insulin receptors. You absolutely must pair this physical signal with a nutritional environment that extinguishes the internal fire. You have to ruthlessly remove the highly processed, factory-made, boxed foods that are rusting your biological pipelines. You need to focus intensely on single-ingredient foods, high-quality proteins to build and repair tissue, and healthy, natural fats like avocados, olive oil, and omega-3s from wild-caught fish. Your brain itself is comprised mostly of fat and water. It desperately needs those high-quality raw materials to insulate its electrical wiring. And finally, you must protect your sleep. If your sleep is chaotic, broken, or chemically induced by alcohol, your brain cannot run its nightly cleaning cycle. During deep sleep, your brain cells physically shrink, allowing a fluid called cerebrospinal fluid to wash heavily over the tissue. This fluid clears out the toxic proteins and metabolic exhaust that naturally built up while you were awake and thinking. If you are chronically depriving yourself of sleep, you are leaving the biological garbage in the streets of the city, year after year, aggressively accelerating the deterioration of the grid. Do not wait until the damage is loud. Do not wait until you are forgetting the names of the people you love the most to suddenly care about your fasting blood sugar, your muscle mass, and your sleep quality. The time to build the heavy scaffolding of a healthy life is right now, today, while you have the mental clarity, the physical energy, and the independence to do it. The physical capacity of your brain to perform work decades from now is entirely dependent on how you treat your biology today. You have the ultimate power to change the trajectory of your aging. You have the power to protect your mind. You just have to decide that your future self is worth the effort today. If this deep dive helped you understand the stark reality of your brain health, I want to hear from you. What is one specific habit you are going to change today to protect your metabolic engine? Leave the word engine in the comments below, along with your goal, so we can hold each other accountable as a community. If you truly want to master your health by understanding the hidden science of how your body actually works, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Turn on all the notifications, because you absolutely do not want to miss our next video, where we break down exactly how to reverse insulin resistance from the ground up. Thank you for watching Metabolic Health Simplified. Protect your biology, and I will see you in the next one.